If you want the ultimate stealth wealth vehicle, a vehicle that costs a lot of money and will always work, but doesn't announce to the world that you're rich, the Toyota Land Cruiser was always the perfect option. But unfortunately, you can no longer buy one, at least the one that we've been familiar with here in the US. The 300 series Land Cruiser, which is what the rest of the world gets as the Toyota Land Cruiser, is no longer sold in the US. You can still get a Toyota Land Cruiser, but it's actually what other markets call the Land Cruiser Prado. It's quite a little bit smaller and not quite the same vehicle. But if you still want the big full-size option, there's a solution for you. You can get a Lexus LX. Now, the LX debuted a couple of model years ago, but now for the 2025 model year, they've made some big improvements. They've added a new off-road trim called the Overtrail. We first saw that on the smaller GX, and they've given the LX a hybrid option, which makes so much sense given how good Lexus is at doing hybrids. In this video, we're gonna find out how the new Overtrail trim fares as a luxury off-roader and find out whether or not you should spend the extra money to get that hybrid powertrain. So let's dive in. Now we're going to start off with a quick walk around of the LX 700H. We've got the Overtrail trim as we saw in the opening. This is going to be the most rugged version of the LX. They've never really done one that's this rugged before. You can see that we have the signature color for this trim, which is called Earth. It's kind of this nice browny color. You can get this color on the GX as well. I actually think it looks a little bit better on the GX, but it's definitely very handsome here as well. It's not the only color that you can get. You can get colors like Nori Green as well that look fantastic. The grille is going to change depending on which trim you get. You're going to get this kind of matte gray grille here on the Overtrail trim, which I think looks really nice when paired with the brown. Now, these wheels might look a little bit familiar to you. They're kind of this matte blacky gray color. These wheels were previously available on the LX. They did this 18-inch wheel on sort of a smaller wheel and thicker sidewall package that they kind of called the Land Cruiser Orphan package internally. It was meant for people that didn't really want big wheels, that were planning to do some off-roading, but now you actually get a really nice all-terrain tire. This was specially developed by Toyo Tires for this car. This is the same tire that you get on the GX Overtrail, but it is a little bit of a different wheel here on the LX. Now, the rest of the vehicle, you're going to get a fixed side step. You're not going to have a power one here on the LX. You're going to be getting black mirrors and black door handles here on the Overtrail model as well. I really dig how this vehicle looks in the earth color. And then here at the back, pretty much the same as what you'd expect from an LX 600. You've got the light bar that runs across. You've got Lexus spelled out in big font. And then down here, instead of saying LX 600, it's going to say LX 700H. Moving on to the interior, the Overtrail trim, unlike the GX, is only going to come in one version. There's no Overtrail and Overtrail Plus on the LX 700H, so you're going to be getting a lot of luxury here on the Overtrail, even though this is actually the cheapest version of the 700H that you can get, which is kind of cool. You can get either a black or this stone brown leather interior. I think the stone brown looks fantastic paired with the earth. You kind of have this brown color here in the middle, and then you have kind of a blacky color here on the outside, so it is a two-tone. This is the semi-aniline leather seat, heated and ventilated with the perforation. You can get massage here as well. Massage is actually standard on any of the LX trims that have semi-aniline, which is all but the base trim, but you can add semi-aniline to that, so you can get front massage seats on basically every LX trim now. That is something that you could not previously get before. They did not offer a front massage. You could get massage in the rear on the ultra luxury trim, but not on the front. I'm glad Lexus pivoted on that. Although we'll see, it is not my favorite massage, not because the massage is bad, it's actually quite good, but for a very different reason, as we'll see just a little bit later. Now, this is the most premium Lexus SUV that the company makes, so all of the materials in here are fantastic. We've got leather over here on the dash, leather on the upper dash as well. We've got tons of buttons and knobs. This is not a vehicle that is dominated or overwhelmed by screens, although we do have quite a bit of screens. We've got the digital gauge cluster here that is going to change a little bit with the drive mode selection. You can see we have a ton of drive modes in here, including a Sport S Plus mode. You definitely need that on your body on frame SUV. You can change that here with this big old drive mode selector. We also have our 4-wheel drive high, 4-wheel drive low. We've got crawl control. We've got multi-terrain select. You click that and then the mode select is going to switch. We have auto, dirt, sand, mud, deep snow. So very different than the standard drive modes. You can kind of see how that changes here on this smaller 7-inch screen. You can also have just your climate control information there, so you can kind of pick what you want on that screen, including your G meter and your brake and accelerator, which is kind of interesting as well. I don't really know who's going to be staring at that while they're driving. Here on the top, we've got the pretty standard Lexus infotainment system. It's 12.3 inches, which is not the biggest screen that they really offer on any vehicle, which is kind of interesting. I mentioned that massage was not my favorite, and here's why. There's only one way to activate it. There's no buttons on the side of the street and on the side of the seat, and there is no voice command ability to turn it on. You have to go into vehicle, seat controls, massage, tap which seat you want, then turn on which massage you want. That is a lot of buttons while you're driving, and these seats do deactivate every like 10 or 15 minutes while you're driving, so you will have to go through that process all over again, which is a little bit annoying. We also do have one more screen, technically, the rear view camera here. When it is blocked by the third row, you can go ahead and pull it, and it is going to become a digital rear view mirror, which I really like as well. We've got a little bit of storage down here in front of the shifter. I should mention that the shifter is going to be a shift by wire system. I believe this is actually the first time that the LX has ever had this shifter. It gets a different one if you're going to be getting the LX 600. We also have a front wireless charger. The old LX 600 Luxury only had a wireless charger in the rear. Now you're going to get it in both, which is a nice addition. And then here in the center console, which opens up either of the different directions for the passenger or the driver, you're going to notice is now a cool box standard. They say this is not a refrigerator, but it does get very, very cold in here. If you go ahead and click the cool box button, you get some nice air. This now comes standard on the LX, which is nice. Something that does not come standard is a panoramic roof, because in fact, the only way to get a sunroof on this car is going to be an old-fashioned, basic, small sunroof. You cannot get the panoramic roof on this one. And we do have a Mark Levinson audio system that is quite nice. 25 speakers, 2400 watt reference sound system. It does sound really good, and it is quite a bank vault in here in terms of silence. So combined with the really good sound system, it is very serene in here. Now, one of my bigger complaints when the LX first came out was that it's not the most practical full-size SUV that you can get. It is a body-on-frame vehicle, and that is going to come with some sacrifices. It's also not as big as some other body-on-frame vehicles, like the Cadillac Escalade, like the Infiniti QX80. It's not really built to be the biggest size here. So we've got a little over 36 inches of legroom here. That changes a little bit depending on if you get the 5-seat or the 7-seat model, but not really any adjustability here on this seat. So you see my legroom is just fine. I do at least have a big, nice, wide, full air control here for all of my climate. I've got a little drawer down here that opens up to my USB-C ports. So I have my heated and ventilated seats as well on the outer seats. So that is quite nice back here as well, to have heated and ventilated seats in the second row. I also have my own button to get to the cool box, which is quite nice as well. We do have the air vents up here, and we do have some manual sunshades that are now standard on all LX models. Again, a nice touch. Now, unlike the GX Overtrail, which is only available as a 5-seater, you can get a third row here in the LX Overtrail, which is kind of a nice thing. Getting back there is not exactly what I would call fancy. You just kind of have this plastic pull, which is going to tip and fold the seat forward, giving you a decent amount of room to get in, but it's not exactly what I would call elegant. There's no one button push that you do to get in there. And then once you do get back here, I'm not going to go ahead and say that this is the fanciest third row that I've ever sat in. I'll come and slide in on this side to show you. We just have about 31 inches of leg room back here. We do have some nice amenities. I can lean back my seat power adjustment wise using this button right here. I do have a USB-C port right here. And then I do have some controls over here on both sides to control both the seat that I'm sitting in and these front seats as well. I can kind of tip and fold them. So if I'm getting into the third row from the seat here, I can actually move this seat. I don't have to walk all the way back in the trunk to do it. Now, the last bit that we've got to talk about is going to be the trunk, and there is a little bit more of an interesting story here with the LX 700. Now, this car is going to suffer from the same problem that plagued the Sequoia. So the Toyota Sequoia is only available as a hybrid, but it does have a third row, meaning that there's a bit of wonkiness when it comes to where they had to put the battery. So the battery is kind of here, like kind of underneath the seats, and that has had them kind of have to place it in a very awkward way. So you actually get this shelf that kind of folds down. You get these two little buttons, you just click them right there, and it kind of ejects these little legs, and those are actually going to click into place like so. And now if you want, you have a little bit of lower storage there, and then you have the rest of your storage up there. But with the seats fully back, you're only getting about 5 cubic feet of space. It is really, really tiny back here. Even like a slim backpack is actually going to struggle to fit back here. Just for reference, in the LX 600, you get about 11 cubic feet behind the third row. So about double the amount of cubic feet. So that is a huge difference there that you're getting taken up if you plan to use this third row very frequently. Of course, if you just get the 2-row version, you should have plenty of space, no problem, even with the LX 700. But this is definitely something to consider here on this 3-row model. You can, of course, fold down the third row using these buttons. We, of course, have the duplicate buttons over there that I showed you earlier. But the problem with these is you have to push and hold. They do not go down automatically. You cannot let them go. If you let go with your fingers, it will simply cease to stop going down. And they do take quite a bit holding your finger here. So now we have this kind of flat surface, a little bit of storage under there. I've already taken the liberty of folding down the second row because you can't do that from back here. There's no separate set of buttons that's going to fold down the second row from the third row, which is a little bit silly on a vehicle that costs over $100,000. But when you go ahead and fold those down, you're going to be getting 31 cubic feet of space. That, again, is a lot less than what you'll get in the LX 600. You get about 46 cubic feet of space in that, although the total distance with that seat down is going to be about 62 cubic feet. Again, less than the 71 cubic feet that you get in the LX 600. I hope that all made sense. You're going to be losing a significant amount of trunk space because of how this third row and this battery kind of take up space here in the back. It does at least go pretty flat, although there is a significant gap here, so you could lose smaller objects down there. It doesn't kind of mold flat in there with the seats as well. So I would say as a cargo hauler, it's definitely not the best at that. You can flip this up as well. There's just a way to click on both sides here, eject this back up, fold these down, and now you have kind of just this little bump at the end here. I wish they maybe would have put a way to let you kind of hold it up like this. I think that would have maybe been a good idea if there was like a way to kind of latch this onto the side, and then you would have a way to stop things from kind of rolling here. Again, that would have been just like a second purpose for here. They did their best with kind of the engineering possible here with a body on frame vehicle and a battery here, but there are definitely some practicality compromises that you have to make when you choose to get the hybrid version of the LX. All right, now let's get out on the road in the new Lexus LX 700H. This is the biggest number that Lexus has ever put onto a vehicle, the number 700. Obviously, you can still get the Lexus LX 600, which is going to be kind of the standard trim, but this is the first time we've been able to get a hybrid on the full-size LX flagship. And with the extra number comes some extra power. So the base engine is pretty much going to remain unchanged no matter which LX you get. It's a 3.4 liter twin turbocharged V6. They actually use this in a number of Lexus and Toyota vehicles, including the Tundra and the Sequoia, as well as the Lexus LS has a version of this engine. In the LX 600, you're going to be getting 409 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are fine, but they're less than what you're going to get out of the iForce Max powertrain in the hybrid Tundra and the hybrid-only Sequoia. Now here, it's going to produce 457 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. That horsepower number is a little bit higher than what you're going to get in the Tundra and the Sequoia, and that is because the LX 700H is tuned to run on 91 octane premium fuel. Now, I asked a Lexus engineer about that. Could you run the Sequoia and the Tundra on premium fuel and get those same horsepower ratings? And he answered that yes, you would be able to get more power out of those Toyota vehicles if you ran it on premium. Conversely, if you really wanted to save some money and run this on regular, it would just pull timing or whatever, and you would probably be fine running this vehicle on regular. It would just produce a little bit power. So interesting little nugget of information there. You can actually get a little bit more power out of the Tundra as well. They have like a TRD power upgrade that is not available here on the Lexus side, but that requires a catback exhaust that just doesn't sound very Lexus, so you can't really get that here. Now, despite that fact, we are going to be a little bit quicker here on this LX700 model because we have extra power and extra torque. Lexus does actually quote a 0 to 60 time on the LX600, which I thought was odd considering that that is a vehicle that you probably wouldn't really need to do a 0 to 60 time in, but they quote 6.9 seconds for the LX600. I actually have my data recorder here. I actually recorded a 6.49 second 0 to 60 time, so almost half a second quicker here on this LX700H. So it's definitely quicker, but it is not that much more fuel efficient. So if you're buying the hybrid version of the LX because you want to save money on gas, you're probably not going to be too pleased with this hybrid powertrain. It's more so tuned for power. You're going to be getting 17 mpg in the city in the LX600. That goes up to 19 mpg here on the 700H, 22 mpg on the highway no matter which trim you get. You really can't use the battery. It's only like a 1.8 kilowatt hour battery, so you're not going to be relying on that on the highway, which is why those highway numbers remain the same for both vehicles. And then overall, you're going to be getting 19 mpg overall on the 600, just 20 mpg here overall, so just a 1 mpg improvement. Again, you're not really spending the extra money on this to save it back in fuel economy. In terms of how it drives, the 10-speed automatic is fantastic. I think it's maybe even made better with the hybrid powertrain here. You almost just don't even feel the shifts. They just are so smooth. I have the vehicle in its Sport Plus setting right now, which is going to add a little bit of weight to the steering. As you can see, I've been doing quite a lot of movement with the steering wheel here. I'm on a very windy road here in Napa Valley, California, and the LX handling it quite well, even though we are in the over-trail trim with the all-terrain tires. Not exactly the sportiest option here within the LX range, but it really does just handle quite competently, especially in the Sport Plus mode. I do like what it does to the steering when you are sort of on a Napa Valley road, which is somewhere you might find yourself if you're buying a vehicle like this. We do now have a little bit of a straighter road, which is going to give me the opportunity to test that 0 to 60 once again. Let's see what we can get. We're going to rev it up, floor it. There's 60 in 5.72 seconds. That was much quicker than the last time I did it, so that is more than a full second quicker than they quote for the LX600. So I'm glad I did that again, because that 5.72 second time is a lot quicker than what you're going to get in the LX600. So something to note if you're looking for a power upgrade here on your LX. Now, unfortunately, the towing capacity does not get better, even though we have more power and torque. 8,000 pounds, which is honestly pretty good. You do have a integrated brake controller as well for towing. So pretty good, honestly, in terms of SUVs that can tow a lot on the luxury side of things. There are one or two that could maybe do a little bit better than that, but I'm not going to complain about 8,000 pounds of towing. Other than that, the drive of the LX is pretty similar to what you remember if you've ever driven an LX 600. It's a body-on-frame vehicle, so it has a little bit of squish to it. It's definitely not as maybe comfortable and soft as something like a Range Rover, but you know, some people might like that kind of old school truckiness that you find here on the LX. And I think this and the Range Rover exist on polar opposite ends of the reliability spectrum. So something to consider when you're maybe cross-shopping the two. And the only other thing that you're going to consider is, do I want the 700H powertrain over the 600? We already found out that it is quicker, not so much more fuel efficient, but it does cost a little bit more. And that might actually come down to which trim you want, because this Overtrail is only available as a hybrid. There's the base trim, which is only available as a 600, and then there's a few that you can get as both, whether a 600 or a 700. So let's pull over, talk about the pricing, and find out whether or not you should spend the extra to get the LX hybrid. So that's going to wrap up our time with the 2025 Lexus LX 700. Now here's the big question. Do we think that the 700 is worth the price premium that you're going to be spending over a 600? And do we like the Overtrail trim? Now here's one of the big problems that Lexus has for the overall LX lineup for 2025. It is a lot more expensive than last year's model, and I mean a lot. They used to have kind of like a base model. They called this kind of like the orphan Land Cruiser model internally. They didn't really actually call it that, but it started at just under $94,000. That was the starting price of a 2024 Lexus LX. For 2025, the LX 600 Premium, the Premium now acts as the base model for just under $107,000. So that is a substantial price increase. I guess maybe if you could afford a $94,000 car, 107 isn't that big of a deal, but it only goes up from there. The F Sport handling trim is going to be just under 114 grand. And the LF 600 Luxury is going to be $115,850. Now we get into the 700 model. So you can't get all of the trims in the 700. The Premium is not available as a 700, but the rest are, and some of them are actually only available as a 700. So if you want the Overtrail trim, that's going to be actually the cheapest way to get yourself into a hybrid LX at $115,350. So about the same price as what you're going to spend on the 600 Luxury. If you want the F Sport handling, that's $117,850. So it's about a $4,000 price premium over the gas one for an equivalent F Sport handling. If you want the Luxury, that's going to be $119,850. Again, a $4,000 premium. And then they've now made the Ultra Luxury, which is the crazy kind of limousine-like four-seater. That is also only available as a 700 for $141,350, the most expensive of the bunch. And I've reviewed that previously. Go back and watch my video that I did on the LX Ultra Luxury. I wasn't the biggest fan of that car. I do think that there are better kind of executive rear seat kind of limousine type SUVs like the Mercedes Maybach GLS. I definitely think there are better options there. But here's the question. Is the hybrid trim, the 700H, worth the $4,000 upgrade? And I'm just not so sold on that. The fuel economy is only a little bit better. The performance is better for sure, but I definitely don't think it's like a world different from the LX 600. I think maybe it kind of just depends on which trim you're gonna get. I love the Overtrail. I think this thing just looks fantastic with the wheels and the off-road capability, and the price I think is actually pretty good on this one. If I was gonna get the Luxury or the F Sport handling, I think I would probably just go for the 600 anyway and maybe not spend the extra $4 grand. But if you are spending this much money anyway, maybe $4 grand really isn't that big of a deal to you. But I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, would you spend $4,000 more to get the LX 700 over the 600, or do you prefer the smaller Lexus GX with its really unique boxy styling? I want to hear from you in the comments, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.